Bondi X is a max cushion shoe with a plate in it. So for many of you, it just doesn't make sense, especially at its $200 price point. But I've had this shoe for a few months now, and I think I've got it figured out. Let's lace up the Bondi X and talk about it after 100 miles. 10.37 miles, 9 minutes per mile on average, and 138 beats per minute for the run today, taking it nice and easy and rounding out my testing of the Hoka Bondi X. Now, before I give my thoughts on this shoe after 100 miles, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that Hoka sent me for the purpose of review. However, they're not paying me to make this video or to use the shoe, and they're not going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Hoka Bondi X after 100 miles. First, I want to talk about how I've been using the shoe, and that has changed from when I first got the shoe until now. So when I first got it, I thought, like you guys, if it's a Bondi, which is Hoka's max cushion shoe, their cushiest road shoe available, but it has a carbon fiber plate in it, what is it about it that makes it feel like it needs to have that carbon fiber plate? Maybe it's a speed day shoe, maybe it's a workout shoe, because when I think carbon fiber plate, I think race day. So I did take this shoe out for some faster runs. In fact, I raced a half marathon in it. I ran the Chicago half marathon just a couple of weeks before the Chicago marathon in this shoe, and I felt like it did a pretty good job, but I didn't exactly love my experience in it. It did well, but it's not really something that I would go out and pay a premium for or go out and feel like, wow, Hoka's really onto something and everyone's going to start copying. So I felt like it didn't really work for me as a speed day shoe. Plus, any other times where I really tried to pick up the pace in the shoe, I felt like after about the 10-mile mark, I started to get a hot spot in one of my feet, and I felt like there's just something about it that wasn't agreeing with me when I was using it as a speed day shoe. So ultimately, kind of my use of the shoe changed over time, and I found myself using it less and less for speed days and more for recovery days and other just kind of easy running days just like today. And I think that that's because of the way that this shoe is set up. It does have a relatively high stack height, 33 millimeters in the back with a 5mm drop. But even though Hoka uses that compression molded EVA in a lot of their shoes, like the regular Bondi, the Bondi 7, what they've done in this one feels a little bit different. I don't know if it actually is different or if it just feels different in my mind, but it feels different. It feels like the compression molded EVA is a little bit softer, a little bit less dense than it normally is. And I also think that they've changed the geometry of the shoe just a little bit. So a lot of Hoka shoes have a really sharp rocker. They call it the early stage meta rocker, which feels like kind of like if you were standing on the edge of a curb or a stair and kind of like stepped off, your toe would dip down and your ankle would pick up as you were tipping over that edge. And that's kind of the feeling that you get in a lot of the Hoka shoes. In the Bondi X, I feel like that rocker is a little bit less pronounced. It's a little bit more flattened out. And I think that that is there for two reasons. One, to work with not only the less dense compression molded EVA, but also to work with the carbon fiber plate in there. And I think to the extent that they're using kind of like those three elements, the geometry, the foam, and the plate, I think that they're all working really well. But they're all working really well to give me a really great recovery run max cushion shoe experience. So that's how I've been using the shoe as I've been getting deeper into my marathon build, getting ready for the LA Marathon in a couple of weeks. I find myself reaching for this shoe only when I need a recovery day shoe, only when I really want to pamper myself and feel good while also still getting my regular miles in. And that's where this shoe has been really working well for me. And it's something that I've been looking forward to running in on those days where I am a little bit more tired and I need a little bit more comfort. And ultimately, I think that as far as the use case for the Bondi X goes, for me and the way that I've been kind of just gravitating to it is I use it just like I would use a regular Bondi, but I also think that the Bondi X is, for me, the best Bondi that Hoka has ever made. So with that being said, let's talk about how the shoe has been holding up over the last 100 miles. First, let's take a look at the outsole, and I would say that there is a little bit of wear and tear that I can see in terms of some of the rubber getting worn down on the outsole. I'd say that on the right shoe is where it's getting a little bit more wear, and I'm seeing it in kind of the usual spots. A little bit on the fringe on the outside of the foot, and on the heel in the same kind of side on that lateral side. That's where I'm seeing a little bit of wear as well. And I'm seeing just a tiny bit up in the forefoot as well. Not that it's worn down a little bit, but I can tell that, you know, it's not like day one fresh. As far as the exposed midsole foam goes, I think that's holding up really well. So in terms of the strategic placement of the rubber on the shoe to help keep the weight down, I think that they're doing a really good job, because none of the midsole foam for me is looking especially chewed up. The one thing that I will note though is that this X pattern that they have shown in this shoe, and all the X shoes from Hoka have like this little X pattern where you could see the carbon fiber plate. In this shoe, it picks up a lot of rocks. So basically like every other run, I come home, I'll look at the shoes and I won't notice them, but then I'll see in the shoe that like it's picked up a large stone in there, and I have to kind of pick it out. But as far as that goes, in terms of that kind of wear, I think it's doing above average and better than I would expect for a shoe at this 100-mile mark. As far as the midsole foam goes, I do think that it has compressed a little bit, and all of the EVA foams do that over time. And I feel like the way that it's changed is that it's lost a little bit of that extra softness, kind of the airiness that I felt right initially when I got the shoe out of the box. And right now it feels like it's a little bit more squishy. And so maybe that's part of the reason why I've been transitioning to using this for more of those more comfort seeking days rather than some of those speed days, is because of the way that the foam is changing as well. I don't think that it's unusual, or I don't think it's happening at an accelerated pace by any means. I do think that for me and how I've been using this shoe, it's been like a very pleasant breaking in, but I don't think that it's something where it's like, oh, you're not going to enjoy it for the first 50 miles kind of thing at all. There have been some changes, but not substantial. I still think that it is a very comfortable upper. There is a EVA mesh tongue on the top that's very minimally padded, probably the lightest amount in padding you've ever seen in a Bondi, and there is some padding along the heel cup as well. And for the most part, all this kind of stays on the foot in a pleasant way and stays out of my way also in a pleasant way as well. There's lots of room in the toe box, plenty of width, and I think that as far as fit goes, it fits better than any other Bondi that I've ever experienced before. So in terms of not only the geometry and the dynamics of the midsole foam, the upper also is the most comfortable Bondi that I've ever experienced. So it's easy for me to say, as someone who admittedly is not the biggest Bondi fan, but as from someone who's tried a couple of different previous iterations of the Bondi, I do think that the Bondi X is the best one that Hoka has ever made. So let's talk about whether or not people should go out and buy this shoe. At the top of the video, I mentioned that it is a $200 shoe, so you're paying a $40 premium on the regular Bondi. I usually don't talk too much about prices, but I feel like for this one, the pricing feels a little bit off. And it might be an accurate reflection of the materials and the labor that goes into making this shoe. But I also feel like if you're looking at some of the other shoes in the Hoka lineup, the Carbon X2, for example, that one starts out at a retail of $180. And I think that I'd feel much better paying a $20 premium to get to the Bondi X than I would paying a $40 over just the regular Bondi version. And so I feel like the pricing is a little bit off on this one, and I'm really hoping that this shoe goes on sale, just like the Carbon X2 now is going on sale and is discounted to, I think, like less than $145 in most places that you can find it. I don't think that the Bondi X is discounted anywhere right now as far as I can tell, but I do think that if you are a Bondi fan, you should be keeping your eye out for when this shoe finally does go on sale. But for I think the most people out there, if you're like curious about the Bondi, you're trying to figure out, you know, I've liked some of these other Hoka shoes like the Clifton, like the Mach 4, and you want to see what the max cushion thing is all about, I don't know that the Bondi X at the current full retail price is like the best option for you, because I do think that the pricing is a little bit off. But overall, I think that it is a great shoe that I have definitely enjoyed running in, and it has been something that I have welcomed on my recovery days and any other day where I'm just looking to put in a lot of easy, comfortable miles. So those are my thoughts on the Bondi X after 100 miles. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Monday through Friday right here on YouTube on my Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'll post a link to that down in the description below. Before I go today, I do want to go over the charity runner of the week. In lieu of a charity runner of the week this week, I am donating $100 to World Central Kitchen. It is the 501c3 that was founded by Chef Jose Andres. And right now, they are working to make sure that Ukrainian refugees have some warm food to eat and also some supplies to help them as they are fleeing for their own safety. So I've donated $100 of my own money, and I would love it if you would consider donating even just a minimum amount to help support this cause. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?